All right, so I am kind of sitting here at the desk, ready to podcast. I have my Darth Revan Sith holocron candle nearby.
Nice.
The smell of like peppery peppermint, is in the air. Like it's a good Halloween to holiday candle. It transitions, but we're not here
Yeah.
to talk about candles. We are here with Ryan from Transcend Sabers, and we're very excited to talk with him. And how are you doing?
Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, we're doing awesome. Yeah, excited to have you on, and excited to learn a little bit more about what you have going on over at Transcend Sabers. You have the Instagram page, and it looks pretty impressive. So, yeah, very excited to have you on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, thanks. I'm super honored. This is probably my first podcast I've ever been on, so hope I do all right for you guys.
You're doing great, and it's going to be fun.
All right.
So, what is your story? How did you get into Transcend Sabers? How did you get into fighting?
Where should I begin? So I've been into like martial arts and fighting and stuff since I was a kid. It's probably video games and like superhero stuff. That's probably where I started doing it. So there was that. Lots of just like video game mocap that inspired a lot of choreography and things like that. Just ideas. That's like where I got most of my ideas from.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time I've dabbled in martial arts like Muay Thai, Wushu, Krav Maga, kickboxing, things of that nature. And so that definitely plays a role. And then what else do we? Then there was the parkour and free running phase, which is a lot of like flips and jumps and running and climbing stuff. So while you don't see that necessarily directly in the movement with the sabers, you're seeing. Well, actually, I guess you do, because I do flips off of stuff in this profile or in the some of these clips. So that does play a role. Like I wanted to basically, one of the things that appealed to me about like the whole Jedi thing and lightsabers and things like that was like you've got magical space wizards that can jump and do flips and move stuff with their minds, and they, like I said, have laser swords, which is which are lightsabers, which is pretty cool. So I just was like, how do I become that? And basically over time, through various interests, this was sort of like a side hobby, and I've trained that way for a fair amount of time, and it eventually became something that I was able to do. I was definitely one of the weirdest people in the gym when I was like, oh, I can already do like a front flip off of this ledge. How do I do it with a glowing white stick? And as you can imagine, that comes with some, risks as well. And like I have some tutorials on my on the Instagram page that actually talk specifically like what to think about if you want to try doing it. And I'm also very cognizant, like not everybody, in the Star Wars community and lightsaber community is A, athletic, or B, capable of flips. So I really try to like keep it as simple as possible and start at the ground level.
Mm-hmm.
And focus on like, the safety first, right? Like little things like you have to keep in mind, like keeping the blade away from your face. Like I do, if you look at the flips that I do, a lot of the stuff I do is backhanded because it keeps the blade out of the way. And it's not just so that when I'm flipping, I don't hit it in my face, but like if your blade is, if you have the normal forehand grip and the blade is out in front of like your arm and wrist and pointing away from you, if it bumps a mat or anything and comes back, hits your face, could hit your eye, it's not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So especially when you're testing out something like that, I make sure to do backhand. Anyway, so these are all the little things that I take into account, like that you probably aren't thinking about when you're looking at some of these clips. And I do spend a lot of time doing that. And again, so how did I get there? Yeah, just something I've kind of always wanted to do. And it's funny because I didn't actually get in the lightsaber community until I started working a corporate job, and I would just like get off work and just like look at lightsabers. And why I started choreographing the way that I did was, I know different strokes for different folks in terms of Star Wars and the content, you've got your prequel fans, you got your OT fans, and you got your sequel fans. I will admit I am in the first two fans, first two category fans. I'm not a huge fan of the sequels. And as a result, I was like, I'm pretty sure we can do something that I would have wanted to see more of. Like, I love the prequel. Like, the reason, to me, the redeeming quality of the prequels is the lightsaber battles. So I wanted to do that in real life with no wires. One of the issues I had with the sequel trilogy was what I claim to be the overuse of wires. So that was my issue with that. But so we were able to do that, more or less. Yeah, we were able to. I've been training without wires to do stuff without wires for a long time. So it's just like, how do we translate that into very short form content and then film it? So that's a very long answer to your question, but hope that sufficed.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So I love it. So you're into martial arts and you decide you want to do incorporate some of this lightsaber fighting into it. Now I have a couple of lightsabers. I have the Hasbro ones, and I've got a couple of, from Galaxy's Edge, but I definitely couldn't do what you do on your Instagram with those. So if someone wanted to, get into doing it more seriously, what are kind of some suggestions, maybe where to look, for equipment or, groups or things like that, maybe for someone who wants to, pursue a little bit more seriously into this Star Wars dueling?
Yeah. So with regards to, if you want to do kind of what I did, so you don't actually need necessarily duel worthy sabers. That's a huge thing in forums. They're very big into, oh, I want this, this, and this, and I want it to be duel worthy. And that makes sense. If your goal is to run around and smack other people's lightsabers or smack other people, please do this safely, folks. It ought to be, you wanted something durable. And obviously I also want something durable. But I have different reasons for, say, the blade thickness. If I'm doing a certain movement, I might want a heavier, thicker blade, like a Saberforge V4. I believe they're still called V4. It's been a while since I've looked at their site, but it's a thicker dueling blade, depending on the length. What I'm trying to do. So if they're trying to do flips, I recommend going shorter. I know it's not canon, but if you're learning how to do stuff with lightsabers and you can change the length of the blade, and especially with a staff or something like that, I say and especially if you don't want to, destroy $100, $200, $300 flashlight, start with the cheapest hilt you can, and then one of the shortest blades that you can. If you're feeling ready to move and do basic acrobatics with sabers, is start relatively small and cheap. And as you gain in confidence, go up. Of course, the other thing that I would recommend is before you do any flip with any acrobatic, even if it's a cartwheel, make sure you can do it without the lightsaber first. Because if you just run in there and you get something and you hold it in your hand and it's expensive, you might have it in your hand and do it in the lawn and you're I did it, and okay, but then maybe it gets muddy and it slips out of your hand or hits you in the face. Just there's little things that you got to do. You want to be confident, comfortable, clean in your movement. And you want to make sure that you're doing it as safely as you can. Some people have expressed concern, oh man, what you're doing is so dangerous. What they don't see is the constant repetitions. There's the Old Republic trailer that I did. It was sort of we meant to do a heavier sort of edited version of that. We wanted to make it tighter to the Deceived trailer. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
If I'm in the right podcast. Yeah. Those were the huge inspiration for me to be hey, I want to bring that out into real life, and I think it's possible. So I did. Me and a group of 5 or 6 guys decided to do that, and I happened to work at a parkour gym briefly for a time. The owner, and I was like, hey, can I just borrow the back end of this gym so I can do this little project? Luckily, he was very open to that, and so we did that no problem. but people think that what I'm doing is so super dangerous. I'm like, you haven't seen the half of the stuff that
Right, sure.
and that was to a mat, and this is actually, I would say that the Star Wars lightsaber stuff, like doing flips with props, is probably like the tail end of my acrobatic and movement career. Like I'd been training for like 8 years before that, like without stuff. So it's like, okay, well, adding the stuff is whatever. So if you can't do a front flip off of basically the height of a rooftop with a lightsaber, don't be discouraged. Do it on the ground, like do it in the gym. Try to get open gym. Do it onto a mat, then to like a very squishy mat, and you can move to a thinner mat, and then you can move to the floor. And then when you're comfortable on the floor, maybe you can do like outside into sand or grass, and then you can move up from there. But make sure you have the fundamentals before you throw props in, please. That's my PSA for the day.
Yeah. One question I have is like, when you have a lightsaber hilt, is that like metal or is it foam, or can you kind of switch them?
I don't touch foam. I'm doing it I guess the old-fashioned way. I don't know. I'm using aluminum, usually the aircraft grade. Lightsaber nerds are mad at me now. Aircraft aluminum. I can't remember the number, but like the standard, like a lot of them are like aluminum, and plastic it's like a thick walled plastic is like the blade. Those are my go-tos. I just more comfortable with them at this point, yeah. Let my inner child come out, and so I just haven't even thought to use foam. I'm trying to think if there's ever a time when I used foam swords when doing. I know I pretty much went hard the whole time.
Yeah, it looks like
plastic
you're
and metal.
living the dream, though. I mean, I think every Star Wars fan goes through a lightsaber fighting phase. I grew up with the Qui-Gon hilt, the Anakin Skywalker from Attack of the Clones hilt.
Yeah,
it's an interesting kind of, like, based on the Graflex camera, it's an interesting kind of saber. Once you kind of learn it, it's like, ooh, I'm gonna do this one for the rest of my life, and then I had the Yoda one from Star Wars Revenge of the Sith. I think I wound up with a Mace Windu one at some point, because I'm like, purple, it's gonna happen, and
it's purple, yeah.
It finally did, and yeah. So what sabers did you have, Brian?
So I think the first ones I ever had were I think same as you. I had like that Qui-Gon one that had like the super hard plastic that extended out, and I had like a cheaper like Obi-Wan Kenobi one, the Padawan one from episode 1. And those were really the only ones that I had until recently, and now I have a whole bunch of the Hasbro ones, and a couple that I had gotten from Galaxy's Edge and Shop Disney now. So that collection's gotten pretty good, but those are more just for the hilts. I don't have them with the blades in for the most part. So
yeah.
But yeah, when I went to Galaxy's Edge, that was the legacy hilt that I got was the Obi-Wan Kenobi Padawan one, because that one's always been my favorite.
Yeah.
Nice. I haven't been to Galaxy's Edge yet.
It's pretty fun,
Yeah.
I'd recommend it. And I'm team green milk over blue milk always. But here's a hack: if you want to try them both, you just tell them, "Can I get half and half, like green and blue?" And so you don't have to buy two, one of green milk and one of blue milk. And then I did try the hot chocolate there, and because I'm a hot chocolate person, it's part of my identity, I guess. But
super fan.
Yeah, and
right.
It was pretty good too. But get the Ronto wrap. That's the food item to get if you go. So.
Noted. All right, so we're getting some insider tips here. Okay.
Yeah, such an insider. Not really.
More than me. You're more of an insider than me.
Yeah,
that's right. So I guess then, Ryan, What kind of are your favorite hilts or your favorite styles of hilt to use? Kind of just generally within like Star Wars fandom, but then into what you do with Transcend Sabers.
Yeah, that's a good question. Because there's like the aesthetic. So I was thinking about what you said with the how you said you have some hilts that you don't have blades in, right?
Yep.
I've got there. Well, when I had them out and displayed, like I wanted to do that. I wanted to have them not with a blade in, but I just couldn't help it because if I'm looking at a lightsaber, I'm going to want to pick it up and spit it.
Right. Sure.
That's just kind of how I am at this point. But I've always been a sucker for windows. I know not everybody is, but you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about with the anatomy of the lightsaber?
No.
Like the emitter window. Okay, all right, great. Because there's like a whole, so there's like whole forums where people just talk about their just lightsabers. I mean, it's where I've kind of low key lived, and one of the things that made me think, there's a community for this, and like that, and like the sharp uptick in viewership when I posted the Old Republic Deceived trailer, and when I posted my sort of fan film Omen, which is a Old Republic fan film based on Arkin and Texan, and technically, I mean, it is a fan film. It's not canon, obviously, but technically, it could fit in the Sacrifice trailer. So feel free to check that one out. It's also on the Instagram page, Transcend Sabers. But as far as the hilts that I'm sucker for emitter windows. I dig emitter windows, and I like claws. Different kinds of things that claws are basically things that usually screw in and hang and like go up. For example, I'm thinking of Count Dooku has a claw on the end of the claw that goes off the end of the emitter, the emitter is where the blade comes out, and the pommel is like the thing at the back. That
like
plum
comes from the French. It means apple. So I guess
yes.
I did a little bit of fencing. I need to get back into that. It's probably the safest sport you can do during Corona. You're covered and your face has a mask, so your whole body's
you're forced
covered.
to be so far away.
Yeah. So it sounds like you are kind of, living the dream. Are you currently a stunt person or having aspirations to be a stunt person?
I've gone back and forth on that a lot. I think, I've been training parkour and free running now. I think I did it for 10 to 12 years. And I always dabble in stunts, like certain like bag falls, like not like official, like I haven't gone down to LA, done workshops, but like I've definitely hung out with guys that came in through the parkour gym that were stunt guys or were training to be stunt guys. And sometimes I'd help them. Sometimes they'd show me stuff. And that was such a great community. And obviously COVID shut everything down, especially things in person like that gym. But it was a good spot. And have I considered being a stunt person? It's like, yes. Do I want to be a stunt person? The answer is I'm not quite sure. Especially in this new world, I'm not sure. I just don't know. I haven't really put too much thought into it. I think the biggest issue for me with the stunt thing is stability. It's just like always hunting for the next job. Whereas I like the couple of like the projects, like when I do it on my own time, I know what's going on. I know where we're going. I know where we're shooting. I know everything. And then we just go and we execute. I just get a couple of people and then we execute. Whereas obviously being a stuntman would be great because you get out there and you get exposed and you get paid. Yes. But there's a lot and I admire a lot of stuntmen for this and just performers in general. Like they give up a lot to go and do that stuff. And so,
and you hope
I'm kind of on the fence.
Safe conditions too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Or at least, and in my case, if you're talking to me, if there aren't safe conditions, that the athlete or performer can navigate those conditions competently.
Yeah.
My brother actually, he was it's so funny you mentioned this, but he was a circus. He worked for Cirque du Soleil briefly he had a few month contract with Cirque du Soleil for a while. It's just funny that like I also happened to be flipping off of stuff, and It just, I don't know if it runs in the family or what, but he's the closest thing anyone in our family has to being a stunt performer.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
There's stuff to think about. Like, I definitely do think that stunt people deserve more recognition, especially in like a CGI world. They still do so much, and I honestly think there should be a best stunt cast or best stunt kind of like
Agreed.
category
I do.
in the Oscars.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And I wonder why too. I wonder. I mean, I can't imagine it's. I can't imagine. I just wonder what the barriers are for that. Like, why not? You know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, you could do biggest stunt. You could do all sorts of stuff with that. Like, I don't know. But yeah, no, I'm fully on board with that. So if I can put in a click like on what you just said, I would do that.
So would you say it's kind of like the lightsaber fights that drew you to Star Wars the most?
Which ones, or was it lightsaber fights?
Oh, I just mean like what draws you to Star Wars? Was it like the lightsaber fights, like across the films? Yeah. I'm
pretty confident now. I'm trying to think back. Yeah, it was probably just the lightsaber fights, but also that there were flips involved. Like if you remember, I'm trying to think back to
Duel of the
original
Fates?
trilogy, Duel of the Fates, of course.
Yeah.
One of the things that I was like, because I'm a big practical effects person. Like I really like classical Jackie Chan stuff. So yeah, Jackie Chan's wireless stunt work is really was a huge factor. And there's also an individual named David Bell who the internet basically accepts as the founder of parkour. And if you watch, one of the oldest movies called District B13 has him starring in it. And he's basically like a modern French version of Jackie Chan with bigger jumps, less fighting, more of a running away stunts work. But yeah, so he's a huge influence as well. But as far as like the lightsaber fights that I'm thinking as a kid, like the thing that got me as a kid playing with sticks and fighting people on the play structures would probably have been Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, I'm thinking specifically Vader versus Luke, where I remember he does, I can't remember, is it a front flip or a back flip? And then they reverse it and it makes it look like he did something twice the height that you would normally be able to. And as a kid, I totally was like, wow, that's amazing. So yeah. I went and grew up and decided to start training. How do I do crazy flips like that?
Yeah.
Turns out it is possible mostly in many respects. And then you get to and then obviously the other big one, like I think you mentioned before, was Revenge of the Sith, which is like an epic lightsaber battle.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm a kind of person where, and you see it too in the comment section for some of the Old Republic stuff, people are like, well, that's not realistic fighting. I'm like, yeah, okay, understandable, but we are talking about space wizards that can move stuff with their minds and fight with laser swords.
And it's a movie,
And it's a movie, it's a space
and also,
movie. And
guess what's not realistic in a lightsaber fight? The lightsabers, none of it's going to be realistic.
No, I'm there for the flair, I'm there for the. And I love
that's right.
that.
Yeah.
My other justification, because I get a lot of, oh, you're spinning it too much. It's like, well, okay, to each their own. That's fine. You're allowed to think that. I don't, obviously, because you'll see my entire profile is me spinning lightsabers in different ways, in different configurations. So people seem to like it. So I'm going to keep doing it. But one of the things that I love, particularly the Revenge of the Sith style fighting, is like the flurries are, in my opinion, justified in a way, because it's almost as though, like, my imagination is these are two characters that have a basically psychic abilities, more or less, where you can see things just before they happen, and there's some mind reading that can happen as well. And you're looking at, in the case of Revenge of the Sith, two very experienced adversaries, and they are right in front of each other. They're fighting. So what we are seeing as the viewer is the sabers, moving magically across the screen up and down. But like, we obviously don't know what it's like to experience a Jedi lightsaber fight as a Jedi in that universe, because none of us are. but to me it's justified because it's you can basically be like imagine it's the Jedi predicting the next move of his adversary, and that would be the justification for why they maybe there isn't always a contact point in front, or maybe why there's a behind the back spin, or you can make up all sorts of stuff in your head, like, oh, he's building up charge or something. And that's kind of what you see me do when I do that spin before I do like the ground slam. I've got like 3 or 4 different edits of that where I went to different visual effects artists, and then one did like an exploding earthquake, which is like super cool. Like he went all in and like it's a gym floor, but he went in and cut it up into blocks and bricks, and like he literally has it. He went frame by frame and had it explode as like bricks, and I was like, that is unreal, dude. So I was really appreciative of that. I got another guy who made it like a dust cloud, and like a forced dust cloud, and like pushed everybody away. So there's like, I don't know. I love the fanfare of that spin, because it's like, oh, I can charge up the move and then bam, and then everybody flies away. So I like the spinning types. Yeah. And I forgot what your question was, but that again was probably way too long of an answer for that.
No, definitely. That's very awesome. And yeah, I love all the extra kind of stuff you get with the Star Wars fights, but I guess more grounded, kind of combat styles and duels and things. Are there any outside of Star Wars that you really like, in terms of like sword fighting or anything like that?
Yeah, so where I draw a bunch of my inspiration from the real world that I bring into lightsaber fights is like a lot of like wushu inspired movements, and you can see that in the Old Republic guys are mad at me. I can't remember the name of the trailer, but it's the Old Republic trailer. It's the one where is it Venzalo? No, there's a guy with the horns. I can't remember. This guy with the horns and
it's like he says, "Welcome home."
Yes, that one. Yeah. Yes, the one with the guy in the cowboy hat.
Homecoming?
Anyway, Homecoming, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's the name of it. What was the question again? Oh, you'll notice the lead Jedi, I think he has the horns on him. That was actually my inspiration for the costume, because I basically wanted because I knew it was going on Instagram, so I knew it didn't need to be. Also, if you're doing flips in anything, but that's not a shirt, it's like, that adds difficulty to it for what I believe to be no reason. So I basically found like a cheap sort of 3D printed shirt with like armor on it, and bought it, and then some like relatively cheap 3D printed like leggings that look like they have cyber armor on it, and I tried to get the colors to match as much as I could, and I tried to make it look kind of like what an Old Republic Jedi would look like when I did the Receive trailer. And it's based on the Homecoming Jedi there. At any rate, you'll notice that character...
It's actually Return. So,
it's Return. Okay. Return.
Yeah, because they're returning to the Sith homeworld, the Sith antagonists, including Darth Bandon. Right. So
that's right. But the Jedi in that one does some like very wushu inspired movements, and I think Venzalo does also in the Deceive trailer. Like, and of course these are obviously based on actors that are doing mocap, in a studio. But I can see what I love about my movement history is that I can look at certain movements and I can sort of pull, like, okay, that's this kind of inspiration movement that looks like a Muay Thai setup, or just little things like that I can kind of see in terms of movement. But yeah, so I pull from wushu, and I love adding like kind of a wushu flair, and it's not a huge one. Like, I'm clearly not, if you look at my profile, I'm clearly not like wushu kung fu trained like formally. Like I definitely am a dabbler. I definitely watch YouTube videos, and I take an element and I try to implement it into a flow. And the other thing that I really love about sort of what I do with that page is that I don't, and some of them I have choreographed. Like, there's one where I did like I was in a Arkin, and I did one in an Thexan cosplay, and then I did it to like the Sacrifice trailer theme or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
that one I choreograph. But most of my flows I do not choreograph. Most of them are improvisational, and I try to think of a theme or a movement element, and I try to integrate it. And then I'm just sitting there in the backyard for like 10, maybe 20 minutes and just like play with it. And then I look at it afterward when I feel like it, and I try to see if I achieved some kind of a integration into a fluid flow. And the more fluid the flow is, the better likely it's going to end up on that Instagram page. But
yeah,
so wushu would be the answer to that one, like kung fu, wushu, and like a lot of anything you see weapons wise with kung fu and wushu, like that's
Mm-hmm.
sort of my go-to for if I don't have an idea. I try to look at a martial artist who's done something before, and I try to integrate it into a flow.
Yeah.
Cool.
I mean, I think I'm coming more from like a fencing perspective. I guess I'm just kind of like, I don't know, like a fencing nerd.
Fencing is much more practical than anything I do. Like if you think about actually trying to get somebody, like in the principles that you learn in fencing, I've literally taken like 3 fencing courses, so I'm not an expert by any means. But but already it's like I mean, I'm trying to think, like the formative drill I remember from my first fencing class was like, you're in a lunge all day, like how sore your thighs get.
Yeah. People don't realize just like physically putting on the uniform, like, and standing around is exercise enough sometimes.
For real.
And just like the lunges, like it really is good on your legs, and
oh man,
it's a good workout, you know. But I think like for me, like the fight to beat all movie fights is it's from The Adventures of Robin Hood, the 1938 Errol Flynn film. It's Robin Hood and is it Basil or Basil? I think it's Basil Rathbone as the guy of Gisborne, and I don't know, like this is before CGI, you know, so it's just like if you watch this fight, like what I like is like it looks like it's 2 people fighting, and it's hard, and like they're trying to kill each other. I just think it's so good. So that's my favorite duel outside of Star Wars. What about you, Brian?
Oh, wow, my favorite duel outside of Star Wars. Well, I kind of like the one in Raiders of the Lost Ark where, you know, all of the guys come and pull swords, and he just, you know, pulls out a gun and shoots them because he can't be bothered. So that one's pretty good. I really like the one in the Princess Bride, because that's also very practical and kind of like this this throwback, you know, to the old like swashbuckling films, and you have Carrie Elways and Manny Patinkin. So that one's really cool, and I like it. It's kind of playful, but it's still, you know, practical, and they're doing it all themselves, which I thought was pretty great.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember when the Hunger Games movie came out, like so many people, especially young women when I was going to college, were taking archery classes, and I kind of wonder like if like Pirates of the Caribbean would have come out a little bit later if more people would have gotten into fencing, you know, but stuff to wonder about. But
always a wonder.
Yeah, but my favorite duel for sure in Star Wars is Anakin versus Obi-Wan, kind of like you, Ryan. I just think it's like Matthew Stover kind of like in his book, it's like these 2 people are in some ways closer than Anakin and Padme. Like they know each other, like they believe in each other, they're broken by each other, and like when they're fighting, like it's not good versus evil, it's just Anakin versus Obi-Wan, and like I just think it's such a well done fight. The stakes are there. Mustafar is like such a good backdrop, so that's mine. But what about you, Brian?
So I don't know. I like them all because on different levels they're all impactful. I guess probably the Duel of the Fates, I guess, is probably the kind of the big over the top one that you know made everyone fall in love with what lightsaber fighting could be in a Star Wars film. You know, just kind of the expanse of it. So I guess kind of that one. But I like some of the kind of the more emotional fights. So yeah, so the tail end of like the Obi-Wan Anakin fight, Luke versus Vader. I really like the lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy between Rey and Kylo Ren. So yeah, I like kind of the more emotionally driven parts. But I guess if I had to pick just one, it's probably Luke versus Vader in Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. So, way to make us feel guilty, Brian. But no, just kidding.
No. Just from pure spectacle. Yeah, I mean you have to take the ones from
Yeah.
the prequel trilogy for sure. Just from a like I said, from a pure spectacle standpoint.
Yeah. So, Ryan, how would you describe, like, if you had to, like, give, like, a sentence, like, thesis statement, like, for the prequel, original, and sequel trilogy, like, how would you describe the fighting styles of each trilogy?
Oh, jeez. Sentence for each like trifecta, each trilogy.
You didn't realize this, but you're in for homework today, so.
Well, it's more like a pop quiz than
pop
homework.
Quiz.
Pop quiz, but
I'll be
nice.
I'll be nicer than Cassia. You don't have to limit it to a sentence, but yeah, just a little bit, kind of about each one, just if you have any like takeaways on the styles. Yeah, right.
I'm a little long-winded. I got you. I can take it. Shoot, but and I will take this challenge. I'll try to make it as short as I can. But like prequel trilogy saber fighting, it's just the most furious. I don't even know if it's a word. Furious and impactful vision of what Jedi are capable of. It's like their peak, basically. Either that, or maybe I don't know. Old Republic stuff. Like that's another huge, like. Oftentimes, people don't, when they're Star Wars fans, are not always talking about Old Republic, but in my mind, like obviously, I made a bunch of stuff about it. So for me, it's I believe Old Republic stuff is important. But then you get to the the original trilogy fighting style grounds, like it's like the bedrock of everything that came from it. It's the foundation for what we know and what it's the foundation for what everybody can expect from a lightsaber fight, or what it ought to be. There's the gravitas of Empire Strikes Back one, and then obviously, and I do believe that the original A New Hope one, was limited by its time, definitely. And I think George Lucas was bummed about that too, but maybe he did want it that way. But I know it must have been a pain in the butt to like try to figure out how to make that work back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember who it is, but they'd like some stunt guys like redid the OG style lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Vader from A New Hope, and they kind of like inserted stunt guys in there, and they interlaced footage of like a super epic version of that fight, which I like. I definitely like, but there is something about the simplicity and the cadence and the pausing that comes from Alec Guinness and Vader as a character that matters.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that was way longer than a sentence. Working on it. And then we get to the sequel trilogies. I think the sequel trilogies are a victim, in my opinion, of just what corporate Disney believed that people wanted, but I don't believe that it didn't hit me in my lightsaber wielding soul. That was something that particularly, and I hate to be one of those people, but particularly that killed me in The Last Jedi, was that if you actually look back, there was no saber on saber contact in that film at all. Which was like, man, except maybe, no, wait, that might be a lie, because I think there was one in the throne room scene when it was between
technically
and Rey.
Luke and
wrong?
Ben in the flashback sequence, they they lock sabers.
Okay. So technically, yes. Okay, I got you. What I mean. But as far as like a fight go, full on fight goes, like yeah, technically, I don't think they did. But so that did leave me. I mean, and it wouldn't be even that hard to go back nowadays. I mean, with Disney's budget, you could literally go back and like, I don't know, put one in. Not that they would, but as a saber guy, like I would obviously prefer it. With how much incredible talent that we have now, I also believe that Adam Driver was underutilized in the last one, because I believe that because I believe he was a Marine. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He was, yeah.
So he was a fit guy. Like he was definitely like an athlete, and I don't believe we got to see him really like shine as like what he could do. I imagine he spent a lot more time training for like that last one where he fights off the Knights of Ren. And I mean he did obviously do it, but I'm imagining that there could have been a much longer sequence. But I also understand like you don't necessarily want to overshadow like your protagonist's journey. So I get that, but that's just so yeah. I think the to sum it up again, the sabers in the sequels is probably like I think it's a victim of just corporate growth. Or like we know we need to have lightsabers in this film, but there's something like I can't remember the name of the choreographer who did the prequels, but I'm pretty sure he wasn't present for Nick Gillard. Pretty sure he wasn't present for the sequels, but that would have been cool. And on another one too, because I know they got a lot of hate. My argument would always have been like, if there was just more lightsaber combat, I think a lot more people would have just like been like, okay, whatever, you know, for all the things I'm sure you probably heard. I think a lot more people would have let them slide.
Yeah, I kind of think like I can kind of see like where it was coming from, like. Luke was the only Jedi, and like he was kind of restarting the Jedi from the ground up, like so it's not like they're gonna like have a lot of like saber masters and stuff teaching them. So I kind of saw like the sequels kind of just more as like people fighting. They're not going to be as fancy or refined as like the original or the prequel trilogy, like because like even Luke is kind of a step down from the prequel trilogy. Like he only has like I think 3 days of training with Yoda in Empire Strikes Back, you know, and so he's kind of just like learning as he goes. And like with the prequel trilogy, it's like they're in Jedi school, you know, they're taught from a young age. They're gonna know how to fight and flip and do all that, you know.
Yeah, all the cool stuff. Heck yeah. Absolutely.
That's right. Yeah,
I think that's a pretty good rationale for that. Like I hadn't thought about that before, but that definitely I think alleviates and hopefully alleviates a lot of the listeners who are diehard prequel saber fans for the knocking of it. But we'll see. You know.
Yeah. So we kind of we have like we kind of have our Star Wars ladder, you know, or Star Wars tree, you know, and kind of one of the branches, you know, like I don't know if you've ever heard of like KOTOR, SWTOR, or the Old Republic at all, but
definitely heard of them.
We definitely want to like touch on the SWTOR trailers because you've done some really good covers of them, or videos, fan films. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What makes them awesome in your mind?
So to me, I'll just start out with this. This is one of the things I thought about when you guys reached out to me. I was like, to me, the Old Republic trailers are some of the most succinctly potent content that Star Wars has to offer. And because they can tell entire stories in literally minutes. Like you can go through an entire story arc of a character. You can do it with so few lines. For example, the sacrifice trailer. I mean, that thing. I mean, it's basically Cain and Abel. It's space Cain and Abel, kind of. Not really, but like kind of. You got twins. They're vying for each other, you know, and then for their father's attention or whatever, and then basically one kills the other because he's jealous. It's like, oh, okay, seen this before, but the fact that it's been reskinned so well, like I forgot Like that's what I love is when you can tell a classic archetypal story and you can tell it with a reskin like Star Wars, which I just objectively think is cool. Sorry, you can't change me on that one. But when you do that, it's just so much more impactful because and it speaks to another reason why Star Wars in general is so, I think, impactful to so many people, because if you think about the archetypal symbols of, you know, the fallen hero, and also the fact that you're if you watch it as yourself, you really can put yourself in the different roles. You know, like everybody has had a fall of some point. Like Anakin, I mean, obviously not galaxy ending, like Anakin Skywalker to Darth Vader transformations, but like you know, everybody's had a fall. And so when you watch a character like that, you know, fall, and with John Williams' score, which is like absolutely fantastic, by the way, which I don't think he did the Old Republic trailer stuff, but even whoever did that was really great. I could be wrong about that, but yeah, it's like when you can tell a story that's so archetypal to, I mean, everybody's been jealous, likely been jealous of a family member at some point in life, and then everyone has that kind of inkling, and you know, family strains and things like that. You know, everybody goes home for Thanksgiving, so not everybody wants to use a lightsaber to end other people, but you know, when you can see that happen, it's much more impactful. And even something like and even if what I love about, like, say the Deceive trailer, you don't have like a lot of context necessarily, like when you're just seeing the trailer, especially when you haven't like seen the game or downloaded the game. You know, maybe super fans do, but I didn't. And that's what I love about the trailer, is that it basically stands on its own. Like, you don't need to know anything about any of these characters. You just kind of know, and like if you have a general understanding of Star Wars, like, okay, red guys are the bad guys and green and blues are the good guys, like you can get a sense of what's going on. But again, it's you know, it tells its story even through the music. Like, you know, these Sith, you know, acolytes are invading the Jedi Temple. Like, I mean, boom, there's your story, and it's just so well done. And I remember these are relatively old, if I'm not 2000 and what, like the earliest one's like
2011, I think.
Oh, okay, I was wrong. 2011 probably there was one. So. But, you know, I just remember seeing it for the first time and thinking, my goodness, like, this is beautiful. Like, I still watch these things, like, because like if I want a story in 4 minutes, like a really full fleshed out, like, I mean, with, again, Sacrifice, or even the one where you see Valen, and Valen's mom's name is.
So Senya has her daughter Valen. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and even in the relationship, what I love was like you had like the father-son twin thing going on, and the conflict there, and basically, you know, the father picks one of the sons, and then like I think it was like a couple years later they come out with the Valen, Senya Valen sort of dynamic, and I mean it's not exactly the same, but you're getting to see the fall of the tragedy, the absolute tragedy of somebody falling into their darkest self.
Yeah.
And you know, I wouldn't consider myself like a super Bible person, but like it's biblical in terms of like the fall of a human from their best self into like the darkest, like where the sin, I'll say sin, like consumes them. Like, you're getting to watch that. And in the case of Anakin, it was definitely like lust. I mean, he's literally guilty of all of it. Lust, pride. Like, I don't know if arrogance is one. But like lust and pride, like,
he's arrogant.
Well, you know, yeah, whatever. But just you're seeing the fall of humans from their best, and you get to watch them plummet into darkness. And like, because everybody has had moments, everyone can relate, and that's what makes these so powerful. And then the fact that they can do it in a very short time span, and they can do it with some beautiful music.
Yeah.
I did a long wind again, didn't I?
Oh no, it's not a problem. Like that's what podcasts are. We listen, you know. So
yeah, and I think it was very impactful just for the time they came out. Like I said, I think these came out like 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. So we were 5 years removed from Revenge of the Sith. So we didn't think we were getting any more Star Wars at that point. So when they came out, it was just epic to see Star Wars again, and for it to look like that and be so action packed and to tell these great little narratives and these little snippets. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they're like literally some of my favorite pieces of content of Star Wars. Like absolutely, and I love them because you can share them with everybody too, and everybody can, watch for 4 minutes or whatever, 3 minutes or however long it is. And like usually, like you think, okay, another thing. Even if you're not into Star Wars, you click it, watch it for 3 to 5 to 10 seconds, and the visuals are nice enough, and the cinematography is nice enough that you're hooked. And then there's the story that carries you all the way to the end. You're like, holy crap, I went through a whole story in that period. Anyway, so I could literally just say the same thing a billion times.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what Star Wars is. It's like it can be a very allegorical story, kind of mythic, symbolic. Maybe I'm overselling it, taking it too seriously, but I think like maybe because the characters are a little bit of archetypes, like a lot of people can like kind of insert themselves into the situations, and like it's kind of like good evil, and it's kind of more of a space opera and fantasy, and
100%.
kind of just like you have the spectacle, you have the music, the drama, and if anything, like lightsabers like add so much to the Star Wars experience, I would say, and I don't really think. What are some other weapons that are iconic? Like I think like usually like lightsabers are at the top of the list, and maybe we have like Ghostbuster packs, like
sure,
proton packs. Those are called.
Like I'm a noob when it comes to. I watched the first one and the new one. Maybe I didn't. I should have. And I saw the one that came out a few years ago, the old reboot.
Yeah.
But maybe I needed to see Ghostbusters too, and like I would have like learned all the terminology for Ghostbusters. But yeah, lightsabers are the most iconic weapon I can really think of, and I might have some James Bond fans, in the chat and be like, no, it's this pistol that James Bond uses, but that's what I think.
Yeah.
But
No, I agree. I think that the lightsaber is probably, it's probably the most iconic, and if not, then it's definitely up there. So
yeah. So Ryan, if there were to be a KOTOR, SWTOR, Old Republic adaptation in whatever form it was, like whether a movie, TV show, or something, or even in the upcoming remake, like what would you think the fighting style would look like?
I would hope. I mean, obviously, I always hope. I have pretty high standards, and I understand that like liability is a thing now. So it's what I think it would look like, or what do I want it to look like? I forgot
what you want it to look like.
What I want it to look like? I want a no wires Jackie Chan jumping off walls if necessary, like on occasion, not all the time. That could be really annoying. But like, don't be afraid of holding multiple blades. Smooth, choreographed, basically SWTOR trailers. Style fighting. I'm a huge fan of leaps and stuff. Like, there was a period where I took some dance, and like, there's like leaps and stuff in there. And that also helped with coordination, and like, it just helps with body awareness too. So like, I'm a big fan of those leaps. So that like that one leap, I don't even remember what it's called, but like there's a leap that like Senya does on the bridge in the rain, which I'm just thinking of this scene right now. The fact that I'm even thinking of it and it's like in my head, it's so clear. It's like that's how good these things are. he does this like leap off of somebody, off of one of the guards. And, like it's like this, her knee comes up and she does this like huge extended sort of back turn leap, and then I can't remember what it's called, and then turns around and then I think she stabs the next guy or something like that. Like I love these big, like grandiose gestures before like a strike. I think because I'm a huge fan of like movement and human movement, and so to see something like that is just super cool. And then there's that one where they're in, was it Bastila Shan? They're in the forest with the.
Oh, it's Satel Shan. I think it's like her descendant.
It's Satel.
That's the Hope trailer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's the Hope. Yeah, and she's like going through the forest, and like she does what in parkour we call a speed vault, and she does it over like a tree or over one of the droids, and like stabs another droid with her lightsaber. And it's like slow motion, and I'm like, it's kind of like 300-esque, and I think this came out before 300, so I like to say that they took it from them, but yeah, and I don't need, and when I say 300 stuff, like I don't mean like how that one sequence that everyone knows from 300 where it's like every 5 seconds something slows down, but just like a useful one once in a while, like slow down, see the full movement, see the picture, and then continue. It's like very antithetical to like the Bourne Ultimatum or like the Bourne Supremacy where you can't see like the fighting, or just like the camera shakes a bunch. And
yeah, I mean,
like, what's going on?
Yeah. That's why I prefer like Jackie Chan, where you can see what he's doing rather than like a shaky cam that you kind of see in the Hunger Games. I don't know if that's just to keep the rating lower, but when I'm kind of watching the Bourne movies, it's like it makes Matt Damon and his stunt team look good, but it moves around so much that like I think people might give them too much credit,
Right, 100%. My attitude has always been like, if you're gonna do the work to be good enough to do the movement, like please let us see the movement, instead of just hiding it. Which if you can't, now that's to be said. If you can't do the movement, adding some shaky cam or zooming in close on like the action, or zooming in on a character's face, or like not super close, obviously, but like for the drama and how they take that impact. If you're not particularly good at delivering a blow or a good strike, then shaky cam totally makes sense, like totally justified, at least from a production standpoint. But from a viewer standpoint, I always prefer to see a wide angle, because I would hope that if you're going to do a professional thing, that you'd have the skill to do it, and so you'd hire people that can do stuff. So I'd want to see what they could do. Yeah. That's how I'd prefer the fighting to be.
Yeah. What do you think? What would you want an adaptation's fighting style to look like, Brian?
So I think, on one hand, you have like these trailers that are, kind of these big lightsaber epic duels, but I think like in a Knights of the Old Republic in a timeline, you have a bunch of Jedi, you have a bunch of Sith. They're going to be battling like, medieval warriors. So I think it's going to be a lot just more close combat and, a little bit more truncated in movements. But yeah, I still have the nice big, kind of open battles, I guess, from time to time. But yeah, I think just the fighting style itself would be, like I said, a lot more, I guess like kind of more truncated. I think just due to kind of the where the the dueling factions are in the galaxy at that time. So that's kind of how I see it, I guess. And then you'd still definitely have your standout moments for sure, but as a whole, I think, and that's kind of a big part of the Knights of the Old Republic game. I mean, you get to the Jedi Temple on Dantooine, and you go through and do like your lightsaber training and stuff. So yeah, I think it would be pretty fun, way to integrate kind of how they, are doing lightsaber training and dueling and stuff like that, way back in the beginning times.
Yeah, and yeah, like I mean, in Visions we kind of saw some lightsaber forging, and honestly, like I think it'd be really cool, like to see a live action like saber forge or someone make craft their saber, and
Mm-hmm.
it'd be a good marketing opportunity for, Galaxy's Edge, but like I kind of see like Old Republic fighting style kind of being like you said, Bran, like it's kind of like life or death for these people. They're always like fighting against like old classmates. It's kind of like the Crusades, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not just like Count Dooku fighting against Anakin and Obi-Wan. Like it's not like a 2-on-1 fight, 2-on-2 fight, or 1-on-1. Like it's a battlefield versus a battlefield.
Right.
Sometimes at points are like lots of Jedi, lots of Sith. So it's kind of a bit more like Lord of the Rings, which I kind of think like the most characters seen on screen with a lightsaber is the Patronki Arena. Maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying that okay. Like the
Right.
arena at the end of Attack of the Clones. So like it would be
Right.
a very different style of cinematography and filming and fighting that I don't think we've really seen like in Star Wars as much, and I would be excited to see like some different ways to tackle that. But I kind of see like the individual fighting style actually being a bit of a synthesis of the prequels, like practice and technique. Like they have to
Mm-hmm.
be the best of the best, and they know what they're doing, and like it's gonna look different, I think, even from the prequels. And then I think like before there was fencing, there was kind of just like you're wearing armor, you have a big sword, you hack the other person in the armor, like until
Right.
they're dead. It's like you're opening a can, and it's like who can open the can first and live,
Right. Yeah.
And then like fencing was a bit more of the like you kind of learn how to aim, you learn how to duel, and then you learn how to go to war, so it's a little bit like more honor involved, I guess, in fencing. I'm just trying to hype myself up, but
Yeah. Yeah. There you
Yeah.
go.
but yeah,
No.
sequel, like I think like so it'd be kind of like I would like to see kind of a synthesis of the prequel practice and technique, and the sequels kind of like utility. Like, so it's not going to be like fancy for fancy's sake, but it's going to be like these people know what they're doing so well. They're just really competent, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything extraneous.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, yeah, well, Ryan, it's been awesome having you on and talking about lightsaber, dueling and what you have going on over on the Instagram page. So, thank you very much for coming on and joining us and talking with all of that, talking through all of that with us tonight.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You're very welcome. Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's been an absolute honor.
Yeah.
Happy to
Yeah.
talk about it.
First podcast, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
First podcast. You did awesome, and thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell everyone, listening at home where they can find you and what you have going on with Transcend Sabers online?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Transcend Sabers. Transcend, I believe it's, is that bad? _Sabers, I think. I think so.
I can verify that because I have it up.
Yeah, please do. But yeah, so go ahead and visit that Instagram page. I've got tutorials if you guys want to start just kind of moving sort of more athletically. And I have one tutorial I remember is about like more of an intention behind your movement. And so I'm experimenting, or I have experimented, and I'd like to do more with like conceptual tutorials. So because there's so many little things that I feel that you can improve swings so much if you just embody certain concepts, as opposed to like you must move your left elbow 90 degrees to the left, which you can do, and it definitely absolutely has merit. Everybody starts somewhere, but I'm working on experimenting with sort of teaching in a more of an intuitive sense, so that it's more of a free flow intuitive understanding. So there's tutorials on there that I'm super stoked about. You can check out the short film Omen, which is Arkin versus Thexan. That one's on there. And then also there's the Deceived. It's like a Deceived sort of in real life sort of Old Republic trailer those are like the big ones that I did that I can think of. But so those are like the highlights. But there's something on there for everybody. Especially most of it is flows. So if you like watching, nice flurries, you want somebody that has an example of like flurries. I've got double saber staffs. I've got single blades. I've got double blades, whatever. And I started playing around with cross guards, which is its own animal.
Yeah.
But feel free to check it out. And another long-winded response from me.
Oh, you don't need to worry about that. Not at all.
That is awesome. Yeah, no, definitely don't worry about that. Anyone listening out there, let us know what your favorite lightsaber duel is, because we're interested to get everyone's feedback on that.
Yeah, and again, thank you for coming on. You did great. This is your first podcast episode, and it's just so cool to kind of get different perspectives, like especially with like kind of like basically a professional lightsaber duelist. Like we appreciate your insight, your expertise, and talent. So can't wait to see what you tackle in the future.
Thanks very much, guys. Yeah. I've got one more thing that I forgot to mention.
Yeah,
sure.
There's a guy that I was working with and that you guys may want actually to interview as well. His name is Mike Starwalker. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Oh yes, he's great.
Yeah, have you gotten him on the podcast?
Not yet, but you'll have to hype us up.
He's a great guy.
To him, so we'd love to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'll send him over. I'll send you, or one of them. I'll send your stuff over to him, and I'll plug you very well.
Oh, thanks.
But the other one to mention is I think we won for choreography. It was me, him, and a couple others. We won first place in choreography last year in SaberComp 2020. So
cool.
I forgot to mention that. That probably would have been a good idea to mention that. So feel free to check that out. It's up there still. And Mike Starwalker just put out another 2 for SaberComp 2021.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's a nice little segue into his stuff. So.
Yeah. We'll plug both of you, and thank you again for coming on. And to everyone else listening, may the sword be with you.